So growing up as a kid, I always really liked math and I always found numbers really interesting. Like 9 was always fascinating to me. Like when I was learning the times table, it's like 9 times 6 is 54, 5 plus 4 always adds up to 9. And then as you move up, then it's 63, 72, 81. It's just always 90, 9 and 0. 9 times 10, 9 times 9, 9 times 8. It was always interesting to me. And I was actually listening to something the other day, and they were talking about numbers in different cultures and how our language perceives our numbers. They posed this question to different cultures, and they said, what number is in the middle of 1 and 9? Now, what would you say? Most people in Western culture said 5. 5 is between 1 and 9. Well, other cultures said 3 because of exponentials and times tables. It went 1 to 3, 3 times 3 is 9. I'll show it this way. 1 to 3, and then 3 times 3 is 9. So 3 was in the middle. And again, there's no real right or wrong answer. It's just the culture, the language of what was in the middle, the actual middle, or in terms of times tables and exponentials, what was in the middle. So what I'm going to talk about today is winery math. What kind of math do we have to do as winemakers to make sure everything fits? And then also from a consumer, some fun questions. How many grape clusters are in a bottle? How many bottles are in a barrel? Things like that. So let's get started. This video comes from a lot of people. No one specific person asked about this. I always have people asking, whoa, that's a cool barrel. How many bottles are in there? Or how much does the cluster weigh? How many clusters or grapes are in a bottle? Those are kind of fun questions that I get asked all the time. So I want to break it down for you guys here today. So first off, with anything in winemaking, and especially in this video, this is gonna be part of the whole theme. It depends. For instance, how many bottles are in a barrel? Well, it depends on the size of the barrel. Again, I'm not going to try to be too much of a smartass, but these are important things. Is your barrel 500 liters? Is it 225 liters? Is it 400 liters? All that depends. So since we're talking about barrels, let's just dive into that one first. Again, this is pretty easy math in the metric system. And one quick point on the metric system, sorry, but I am a fan of the metric system, especially in winemaking. Because grams per liter is easy, that makes sense. Parts per million is easy, that makes sense. I still don't know if I'm totally sure how many quarts are in a gallon or how many ounces. And we have like ounces that are weight, and then we have fluid ounces. How many tablespoons are in a teaspoon? No, wait, the teaspoon's smaller, right? Yeah, so how many teaspoons are in a tablespoon? I don't know. I just think that the metric system is easier when it's used for scientific purposes. Again, don't want to get too much into this because this can get kind of dicey, but yeah, I do think it just makes sense. A bottle of wine is 750 milliliters. Let's say you have, let's use a simple number, 4 grams a liter of acid. So in that 750 is 3 grams. Pretty easy. If your bottle was a liter and you had 5 grams of acid, then it has 5 grams in that bottle. Pretty easy, 5 grams per liter. You never really hear like 2 tablespoons per gallon. You don't really hear that kind of stuff. Anyways, enough on the metric system because we do use both in winemaking. We use the metric system for doing things like grams per liter, but then a lot of times when we weigh fruit, we're weighing it in pounds. So we do kind of have a little bit of crossover of both. Back to barrels. So again, just like I stated at the very beginning, how many bottles are in a barrel? Well, it depends. If your barrel is 225 liters, like a standard barrel, then you just take 225, divide it by 0.75, because we have 225 liters. A bottle of wine is 750 milliliters, which is 0.75 of a liter. So 225 divided by 0.75, and you get 300. Pretty easy, 300 bottles in a standard barrel. How many cases is that? Hopefully you can figure this one out. You just divide it by 12, because there's 12 bottles in a case, and you come up with 25. Now, let's say you have a bigger barrel. Let's say your barrel's 400 liters. Well, then you just take 400 divided by 0.75, and you end up with 533-ish bottles. Now, let's say your barrel's 500 liters, 500 liter puncheon. How many bottles is in that? Well, you take 500 divided by 0.75, and you come up with 666-ish bottles. So yeah, barrels to bottles, that's pretty easy. And then you get your number of bottles, then you just divide by 12 to get the number of cases. So this is critical for me when like you're, ordering glass, or you're buying corks, or you're buying, labels, anything like that. You want to know how many bottles you have, right? Obviously. So you kind of figure out, look at your barrels. Okay, I got this much, and then you place your order, and then you have an idea of how many you're going to have. Now, piggybacking off of the barrel one, the next one I think I get asked all the time is how many clusters or how many berries or how many grapes are in a bottle of wine. And again, it depends. Because what it really depends on is how big are the clusters? How big are the berries? How much juice is there? So this is a cluster of Syrah. I weighed this. This weighs 0.38 pounds. Okay, so that's 0.38 pounds of Syrah. Now, Syrah is a very small berry, as you can see. Other things like, Barbera is usually a bit bigger berry. So if it's 0.38 pounds of Syrah versus 0.38 pounds of Barbera, the Barbera is going to give up more juice than the Syrah. This is pretty small berries, really, really tight clusters. So this will have less juice than, say, a Barbera cluster. So again, it depends. But let's just say, for argument's sake, this is 0.38 pounds. So you have to do a little bit of math, again, hence the name of this video. Here are some good round numbers to use. In a ton of grapes, and a ton is 2,000 pounds, in a ton of red grapes, I get about 600 liters per ton, okay? So 600 liters of wine comes from a ton of grapes. 2,000 pounds of grapes give me 600 liters of wine. In reds, I should say that. Whites, I get a little bit less. I do get about 510 liters per ton. Why the difference, you might ask? Well, this is because of pressing. I don't like pressing my whites too hard. Reds you can kind of press a little bit harder. Whites are really, really delicate. So I press my whites gentler, more gentle. I don't press my whites as hard as I press my reds. So I get more juice out of the reds than I do out of the whites. Does that make sense? If you have questions on pressing, I have a video talking about like basic winery terms. So you can check out that. That'll kind of, give you an idea of what I mean by pressing. But you can press really hard and get more and more juice, but then you're also may potentially get more bitterness. And so I'm always really, really careful of that in my white wines. Anyways, let's just go back to 2,000 pounds, 1 ton, will give you 600 liters. Okay, so my cluster of Syrah, that's 0.38 pounds, will give me approximately, let me look at my spreadsheet here, 0.11 liters. Okay, so that little cluster right there will give me 0.1 liters. Hey, with some rounding, I can show you the spreadsheet. Let's just say it was 0.1 liter. That'd be easier. Let's just say it was 0.1 liter. I'll need 7.5 clusters like that because 7.5 times 1 will give me 0.75 that I need for my bottle. Let's say that cluster didn't weigh 0.38 pounds. Let's say it weighed 0.25 pounds, quarter of a pound. Then how many would I have? Well, that's pretty easy. That's some easy numbers because then 0.25 pounds gives me 0.075 liters, 75 mils. So I need 10 of those clusters to get me from 75 mils to 750 mils. So I need 10 of those clusters to make 1 bottle of wine. That's if it weighs 0.25 and again, pressing and other things. But for argument's sake, 0.3, 0.25, 0.35, those are all pretty, normal numbers for cluster weights for grapes. So quick recap, my cluster of Syrah, it weighed 0.38 pounds. It gave me 0.11 liters, so it gave me 110, let's call it 110 with some rounding, 110-ish. No, what was it, 110? 114, it gave me 114 milliliters, okay? Well, for a bottle, I need 750 milliliters. So how many of those do I need to make a bottle of wine? The answer is what, 6.5, 6.5, So about 6 or 7 of these will make 1 bottle of wine. Got it? So hopefully that made sense in terms of clusters. Then I think a lot of times I get asked, well, how many how many clusters are on a vine? Or how many vines do you need to make a bottle? And again, it depends. Because again, a lot of that depends on crop load. I know this is like kind of a silly caveat, but if I'm hanging 1 cluster per shoot and I got 10 shoots on a cordon, maybe it might be good to check out my vines and viticulture video, because I kind of break down all those terms that I just threw out there. But again, it depends, because on my Movedra, I might have 1 cluster per 2 shoots. So then I might only have 4 clusters on a cordon, 4 or 5. So in that aspect, I might need 1 whole plant to make a bottle of wine. Now, like in my Syrah or Cabernet that's GDC, I get very, very small berries, but I can hang a little bit heavier. So I might have 2 clusters per shoot, but only 10 shoots. And so then I would have, on one arm of that GDC, I could have a bottle, but I have 4 arms. So on 1 plant, I could maybe have 3 bottles or so. Again, I know it's silly, it's just kind of splitting hairs, but I think those details are important in terms of, well, how many plants do you need to make a bottle of wine? It kind of depends on how many shoots I have, and therefore, how many clusters do I have, and how much do the clusters weigh, all those kind of things. So again, a lot of that depends, but let's just say on average, there's a cordon, you might have, let's just say 6 shoots, and you probably have 1 cluster per shoot, maybe 2, whatever, sake of argument, let's use, you have 6 shoots and 1 cluster per shoot, and each shoot weighs 0.3 pounds or so. In that 1 cordon, that 1 meter, you could probably get a bottle of wine. Probably, depends, but probably. Anyways, I think that's gonna do it. Hopefully that hasn't been too many numbers or too many caveats, but yeah, just quick recap. 225 liter barrel, that's pretty standard. That'll give you 300 bottles. Within that, that's gonna give you 25 cases, right? That's pretty standard. An average cluster weight is probably 0.3, 0.35, so you probably need between 5, 6, or 7 of a specific cluster to give you a bottle of wine, and you probably could get that on 1 meter or so of a plant, depending on some things. So anyways, that's kind of like some good round numbers, that if you got a grapevine plant and you got a meter, that'll probably give you about a bottle. You need 300 of those to fill up a barrel. Hopefully that was an easy recap. So with that, we're gonna dive into our moon fact of the day, and I had to do this, but it has to be one based on math, right? I talked about this on another moon fact, but it's kind of a different way of wording it, about how long a moon day is. Well, a moon day, like 1 day on the moon, is 708 hours. Now that sounds like a random number, but basically what 708 divided by 24 is about 29.5 days. Because kind of like a puzzle here, the moon takes a whole cycle to make 1 day, because it doesn't really spin. It's tidally locked with us. So for it to go 1 day, for it to spin all the way around, like, our day, we spin around in 24 hours. Well, for the moon to spin around 1 day, it has to go all the way around the earth and come all the way back. 29.5 days, 708 hours. Anyways, that's gonna do it for me. Hope you enjoyed this video on Winery Math. Hopefully I kind of covered some of the main ones. If there's something else that I missed that people are always thinking about with math, talk about it in the comments, let me know. But I thought these were the big ones I always got asked. How many bottles from a barrel, how many clusters in a bottle, and how many clusters or how much from a plant. It is kind of fun topic when you're having a bottle of wine. Oh, how many grape clusters do you think went in this bottle? 6 or 7, depending on some other things. 8, 9, maybe 10 if it's really small. So yeah, just some fun little math facts relating to wine. Again, anything I didn't cover, let me know. There's always 3 ways to get in touch with us. Emails down below, this little thing over here, click that sends a message to us, and we always got the comment field below. So thanks so much for watching. Hope you enjoyed this video. These videos are Wine Club exclusives, so click around, watch some other videos, and enjoy this perk of being one of our Wine Club members. We thank you. That's gonna do it for me. Thanks so much. Keep drinking wine, keep looking up. Have a good day. Tastes very good. Sugar's getting there. Still green seeds.